Good evening and welcome to All Souls Interfaith Gathering for our Music and Spirit service on Sunday, May 17th. We're so glad you've joined us here online, and we look forward to sharing this special time of spiritual depth and understanding with you. Just a few announcements about this evening. We are kicking off our stewardship campaign for 2020, and we'll be hearing later in the service from John Howe about that. Also with us this evening, we have Zach Cohen providing music. And I know that many of you know Zach already, but he's a musician, a songwriter, and a flute maker, as well as a sound healer. By mixing the soothing sound of his own handcrafted bamboo flutes into his sets, he provides us with a soulful expression of spiritual healing. And you can follow along about his flute project, El Bujo Flutes, on Facebook. This evening we will be considering the question, is there enough? And specifically thinking about the notion of sufficiency in our lives. Just a few announcements for this upcoming week. Although our building is still closed, there are a number of online offerings for you to gather with the All Souls community. The first will be this Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. when John Howe leads our evening meditation. You can join on Zoom. On Thursday evening, our men's group meets at 6 p.m. And then next Sunday, of course, we'll have morning meditation at 9 a.m., followed by the Our Search for Meaning group at 10:30 a.m. The links to all of those meetings online can be found on our website, allsoulsinterfaith.org. Now, I invite you to join with me in a spirit of contemplation as we hear this evening's opening words from Danna Faulds. There is no controlling life. Try corralling a lightning bolt, containing a tornado. Dam a stream and it will create a new channel. Resist and the tide will sweep you off your feet. Allow and grace will carry you to higher ground. The only safety lies in letting it all in. The wild with the weak, fear, fantasies, failures, and success. When loss rips off the doors of the heart, or sadness veils your vision with despair, practice becomes simply bearing the truth. In the choice to let go of your known way of being, the whole world is revealed to your new eyes.
This song is called Chapter of the Forest, and to me this song is a reminder, it's a lesson that when we get really quiet, when we get our minds quiet, we start to let go of information processing and can simply be with ourselves and be with nature, that we find that everything we need is there. Met my load down by the riverside. It hits me almost every time. Beauty runs so deep that it's hard to sleep at night. This is the chapter of the forest. Every line and every chorus from my heart, it comes aboard. And every single melody, flame without the smoke. On this holy poetry, I swear I never joke, because I only sing of Narmade. holla every day. Lay my love down at her waters, calling on the mountain's daughter. No more books, no more empty words, no more running away from her. I now learn from the wind and rain, from the song of the lion's mane, as she touches the sun and moon. I sit back and behold that tune. Oh, glory upon her name. We said, Hada, 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 Nahmade. Well, the simple one perspires with a face that burns like fire. Yeah, that's where I lay my body down. And in my dream I heard the lesson of the vault that holds the heavens in. So I gaze upon the crown. You see my woman, she is stainless. Stood there at the base and touched the face. All the gods come out the mountain's sweet embrace. Her song can't be heard unless you let go of the word. So I lay it all down. Behold what I heard, yeah. No more books, no more empty words, no more running away from her. I now learn from the wind and rain, from the song of the lion's mane, as she tosses the sun and moon. I sit back and behold that tune. Oh, glory upon her name. We said, Hada, 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 Nahmade. Hada, 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 Nahmade. Hada, Nahmade. Hada, Nahmade. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Spirit, draw near. Spirit,
Hi everyone, it's Reverend Kimmery Glenn, and I'm going to read our chalice lighting for this evening. It's by Hindu monk Swami Vivekananda. He said that true guidance is like a small torch in the dark forest. It doesn't show everything once, but gives enough light for the next step to be safe. So I'm going to light our chalice in honor of lighting the way for all of us through this time of uncertainty, giving us safety for the next step to be safe, whatever our next step is. Light for our path.
Fire warms me, warms me. The fire calls me, calls me. The fire warms me, it warms me. The fire calls me, it calls me. Let there be love, let there be light, and breathing fire to your soul. In the quiet of the night, up like smoke. Now rise, the smile of the moon knows no desire. Wolf in the night, howling free, calling to the soul of the animal in me. And I'm looking up, I'm breathing in, and I know there's more than what I see. Said in my dreams where the boundaries fade, fire dances to the sound of the rain. Waterfall, together stand tall, calling to the soul of the mother of us all. Yeah, yeah. Fire warms me, it warms me. The fire calls me, it calls me. And on the branches swing, on the branches sway, howling to the mountains I jump from the cradle of the moon, through the signs of the way of the zodiac rules in this game we play. God, I say love, but the stories told, they're just versions of the light we see in the dark of the night, and the simple wonder that we live and die. Fire burn, burn. Timeless turn, turn. Fire burn, baby, burn. Timeless turn, turn. The fire warms me, it warms me. The fire calls me, it calls me. Fire warms me, warms me. The fire calls me, calls me.
During the coronavirus pandemic, we have all dealt with the question, is there enough? We've dealt with it in many ways. Is there enough food? Are there enough household supplies to carry us through a time of lockdown? We've also faced monetary questions. Is there enough money to continue paying the bills during this time of economic disruption? And hopefully we have also asked deeper questions about sufficiency. Do we have enough time with our friends and loved ones? Is the quality of our connection with others as deep and meaningful as we would like it to be? It's been quite interesting to watch over the past few weeks the number of relationships across the years and across the miles that have been reconnected and healed during this time. So we've clearly been dealing with questions of sufficiency, both in terms of our internal life, our meaning, as well as our material needs. And it's clear that there are many frames of reference to think about sufficiency at both of these levels. And there are also teachings from the world's wisdom traditions that guide us about how we address this question. So tonight I'd like to think about this question from the point of view of frames of reference. And the first one is a viewpoint that there is not enough. And in this worldview, resources are extremely limited. There aren't enough to go around to meet our needs. And people who hold this view often focus on living very simply, being thrifty in the way they spend money. And often this is because there is no other choice. Now, both sets of my grandparents lived through the Great Depression, and they told fascinating stories about how they and their parents navigated that time. And what was striking to me decades later was to watch how their experience in the Great Depression influenced the way they lived their lives, and specifically how they viewed money and other resources. There wasn't a lot of trust in banks or other institutions to hold money. And there were often decisions about saving money in ways that struck me as being unnecessary. So having lived through that period, it's understandable that they would carry forward that viewpoint. And it's interesting to think, as we face at least a recession, if not worse, coming out of this pandemic, how this time will shape our view toward material resources and other resources in our lives. Now, there is, of course, plenty of evidence to teach us that there aren't enough resources to continue living in the way we have been, that this pause is good for both us and the planet. In fact, I saw one calculator that showed that if every person on the entire earth lived in the way that most Americans do, in terms of consumption of fuel and heating and cooling and food, then it would require 7 planet Earths to fulfill all of those needs. So there's certainly good cause for us to examine wise use of our resources. However, some spiritual traditions focus on embracing poverty, and they equate spiritual growth with giving up material goods. I have a friend in the Southwest who works with the homeless population, and he's very proud of the fact that he lives a life of poverty. He chooses to forego many what we would consider to be necessities to focus instead on his work with those who have nothing. Now, one of the traps that can be triggered when we take this view is we can begin to equate poverty with spirituality. And just as those who are wealthy can be elitist and can look down on those with less, I've also met people who embrace poverty and use that as a form of reverse elitism, saying, I'm better than others because I don't engage in material goods. And that's not a healthy construct either. So the poverty mindset sometimes has a subservient attitude toward the divine, and it results in a kind of begging and beseeching for care and for the resources that are needed to live life. So that's the first frame of reference, a frame of reference that there isn't enough. The second frame of reference is that there isn't enough yet. And I think that's summed up in a quote from Anthony Hope in The Prisoner of Zenda. He says, I have an income nearly sufficient for my wants, but no one's income is ever quite sufficient, you know. When I read that quote, it reminded me of a class that I once taught at a wealthy church in the Midwest on this topic. And as part of the class, I posed a question, and the question was this: how much is enough for a family of 4 to live on for 1 year? And it was fascinating because this question stumped the class. It was as if they were having trouble wrapping their minds around there being enough. And one businessman said, well, are you talking about my family of 4 or a family of one of my employees? And another woman said, you know, there's never enough. That's why we're working hard to get more. So this sums up the notion that there isn't enough yet. Now, the primary difference between this view and the first one that we just explored is that there is a possibility for more resources to come our way. So this leads to a competitive drive to accomplish, to earn, and to accumulate. But unfortunately, this often leads to a treadmill where enough is always just around the corner. Now, there are some faith traditions that promote this viewpoint. Prosperity theology holds that the divine wants us to all be wealthy and healthy, and that following certain religious teachings and practices will bring about material wealth. And that supports that frame of reference that there isn't enough yet. But I'd like to focus on a third frame of reference that simply holds there is enough. And I'd like to look at strands of teachings from several wisdom traditions. And in fact, they make up one common strand that teaches that the divine always provides enough for each of us. But to grasp this and to fully experience this requires us to become fully conscious and to accept what has been given. Buddhism, for example, teaches that all things are impermanent, whether they're material goods or relationships. All of these are temporary, and that suffering comes from becoming too attached to impermanent things. But when we release our desires for material things, expectations for health, demands about relationships, when those are released, then we experience happiness and peace, we experience sufficiency. In Hinduism, the concept of the Atman holds the idea of the self as spiritual rather than a material being. And so this teaching emphasizes detachment from the material and from material desires. And instead, the focus becomes on us as spiritual beings learning to live in human ways without dependence on the material. Judaism encourages us not to disengage from the real world, but instead to work and enjoy the fruits of our labor. Jewish law frowns on vows of poverty. In fact, it teaches that one should not give away more than 20% of one's income so that we don't put our families in jeopardy of precarious finances. But as you trace the story of Judaism, the very story shows a religious evolution from worship of the physical to a veneration of the spiritual. And so Judaism teaches that the spiritual life is equally as important to the material. It really encourages us to find a balance between the two. And of course, Christianity teaches us that the divine provides for us in every way. There's a passage in the Gospel according to Matthew that teaches, "Therefore, do not be anxious, saying, 'What shall we eat?' Or 'What shall we drink?' Or 'What shall we wear?' For the Gentiles seek after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all." Within earth-based spirituality, there's also a teaching that Mother Earth provides for all of our needs, and that we need to learn and align our lives with all of these rich resources, learning not to abuse them and learning to stop overlooking them and to use them in the right way. So this evening, I would ask you, which approach to sufficiency rings the most true for you? Which approach aligns with your spirituality? And in a broader context, which frame of reference do we want to adopt for the future of All Souls? This evening marks the opening of our stewardship campaign for 2020, All In. And as we think about the gifts that we're pledging to make to our community over the next year, we have a choice to make. We can adopt the worldview that there isn't enough, that there simply won't be enough resources, that we need to continue pinching pennies, we need to look for ways to reduce expenses, or we can choose an elusive vision that there's not enough yet, and jump on that treadmill that never stops of working harder and harder to get more and more. Or as a spiritual community, we can join together to affirm that there is enough, that the divine provides us with the physical resources, with the mental awareness, with the spiritual tools to build the community that we envision here. So in this week to come, may all of our eyes be opened to the bounty that lies all around us, and may we receive and give freely. Many blessings.
Hi everyone, we're going to do our meditation and prayers, so if you want to grab your candle, if you have a candle you want to light, and just get comfortable, find a space. We're going to do some breathing this evening, so when you do feel ready, you can close your eyes if that feels right, and just start to come into tune with your breath. And just noticing with your breath, the quality of your breath. Noticing if it's flowing through you with ease or if it's getting stuck anywhere. Noticing if it's shallow or deep. If it's fast or slow. Noticing if you're getting enough air, this concept this evening of enough. What is enough air? And just start to bring in the perfect amount of air into your belly, moving up to your chest and through your body, bringing enough air to what feels good for you. As you get that quality of enough, and you get to feel that it's enough, then you can start bringing prayers in. And if you're not there yet, just allow yourself to, one of your prayers being to yourself, to continue to bring enough air in and get that sense of stillness, that sense of wholeness that the breath can provide. When you do get it for yourself, prayers can come in. You can start to pray for people maybe that are struggling with breath right now. Bring them this comforting breath. Imagine them having that comforting breath. Imagining anyone you know in your life who's maybe struggling or full of fear, including yourself, faced with challenges right now. Just imagining them getting this perfect amount of breath and release and wholeness and peace. And any other things or people or earth, anything you want to provide breath and breathing space to. Just enough. Bring those prayers in as well. And while you continue to breathe, you can keep your eyes closed. I'm going to read a poem to you and to all of your prayers. It's by Donna Folds. It's from Root to Bloom. It's enough right now to taste one moment of peace. Of course I want more, but at least the door is open. It is enough to draw a conscious breath and let my hands relax. Fingers releasing their tight grasp on things outside my control. It is enough to shed a layer of stress, as if taking off a jacket or a pair of too tight shoes. Ease of being has to start somewhere. This breath is my first step. This breath is my first step. So you can slowly open your eyes again. Breathing back into the space around you. Connected to all the people and things you sent prayers to. Thank you for your prayers. And I know this is the time in our service where we would be again handing out our donation baskets. So I just want to speak because tonight is also all about, is there enough? I just want to say, I think there is enough when we all come together and when we all give what we can. So I want to encourage everyone to give what you can. And I'm sure Dawn's going to be speaking about it, but on the web, under a lot of pages, it says donate. So if you can donate, that's wonderful. And we thank you for all of you who have donated so far. Thank you so much for creating this community with us. And for those of you who want to join us, we do a blessing. Tonight, I'm going to encourage people to use their breath as the blessing. What you can do is you can blow into your hands. You can think of as much abundance as we want in our hands, as much life energy that we want. And we can hold it and say, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give. So everybody has enough.
Hi, my name is John Howe. I've been coming to All Souls for about 5 years. I initially came for the Sunday morning meditation services. Like many of you, I was pretty blown away, first of all, by the building and the landscape, the whole coming into that sanctuary. It was amazing. I think it helped me in my first attempts at meditating in that space. More important than the building itself was the community of people that I found there. Their capacity to listen with compassion, their kindness. It makes it a very special place. You all do. I am so grateful. About 1.5 years ago, I became a meditation leader myself and found again people who were quite kind as I was learning to lead these groups, which became over time larger and larger. And that experience helped me to read more deeply and scan the world for more insight about the nature of awareness. Very thankful for that experience. Meditation is not an easy task, and one's mind resists it. So having spiritual friends is very useful in sustaining a practice. With that in mind, I've started a Wednesday evening meditation circle at 7:30 is now on Zoom. It's just 20 minutes, 35 minutes for the whole thing. I hope to see you there. I'm here, though, not just to talk about how I contribute my time, but also how my wife and I contribute financially to All Souls. Money is a means of communicating value. In determining the value of All Souls, my wife and I considered the money we put into recreation and entertainment and came up with a figure that seemed right for us. I encourage you too to make such a calculation. And I close with this question, whether you've been a regular contributor or you're considering this for the very first time. What is your greatest hope for the impact of the financial gifts you share with All Souls? What is your greatest hope? Thank you very much.
And I said this journey of life, this journey of life, I don't know where it goes from here. I said this journey of life, this journey of life, I don't know where it goes from here. These colors of red and gray against the autumn day, the trees they sway, the light it plays on the resting of my soul in lands of the unknown, where I have learned to see these things I've never seen. Open sea, it's these things I've never seen.
It has been good to be with you this evening in this virtual service. And of course, we long for the day when we can once again be together in one another's physical presence. We love you and miss you all. You're in our hearts, our prayers, our minds every day. This evening, our closing words come from Brené Brown in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. Sufficiency isn't 2 steps up from poverty or 1 step short of abundance. It isn't a measure of barely enough or more than enough. In fact, sufficiency isn't an amount at all. It is an experience, a context we generate, a declaration, a knowing that there is enough. May you go into this week secure in the knowledge that there is enough for you. Many blessings.